So when I think about intersectional women's rights, it makes me think about the way that women of color experience oppression, because it's definitely important to talk about reproductive rights, but it's also important to talk about the different issues that women of color face. For example, right now with like our current political climate, a lot of like the clients that we see at our agency are terrified of being deported. So that's affecting their relationships in terms of them seeking help, them being even like feeling safe enough to walk on the street.
I think women's rights for me is inherently challenging the systematic structures of oppression, from police to prisons to the military, because we're more than just thinking about women's reproductive rights, which are important, but we also need to think about, well, where are women dying right now? Women are dying in Iraq and Sudan and Somalia from drone strikes, so we can't just be thinking about women here. Women exist around the world, so we need to be making sure that intersectionally we're including them in our activism too.
So I think about women who had their reproductive organs ripped out of their bodies without their consent. And the same happened to men, but we have to talk about how women, in terms of in the labor force and our educational systems in Puerto Rico and here in Chicago, have been exploited at a different level. And even though I identify very strongly as a Puerto Rican woman, I'm very intentional about talking about being a Black Puerto Rican woman, and how my experience, even within my own community, isn't the same, right? It's besides our spectrum of color, right? There's a spectrum of different intersectional identities that we represent. I'm a lesbian, and thank you. Lesbians in the house. So I sometimes forget that my more masculine partner, right, is like her perspectives on femininity, on womanhood, on feminism are stripped away from her very consistently.
Womanhood is different than any of the women sitting next to me. Like, I don't have to think about what's happening in the Middle East if I don't want to, but I do have to think about what's happened here. Like she said, our moms, my aunties, they've had their reproductive organs taken out. All the way up into the 90s, this happened to Native girls who were 12 years old. Their first visit to the doctor to check their lady parts, they're getting sterilized. And this happened to women who are much older than me.
My existence is resistance, a lovely hashtag that I excel at. Hashtag Indigenous, hashtag First Nations, hashtag You're on Native Land, hashtag Stand with Standing Rock. This rock, shackled to my ankles, waiting for the tide to rise. Certificate of Indian blood, Athabascan and Yupik, let's forget the rest. Generations slowly disintegrating the blood that fills this cup. Pure blood, I'm not, but I identify. Not enough, too many sips from other cups. How much Athabascan, how much Yupik, furthering our classification, persuade us down the easy path to purity, but end at eventual extinction, slow demise into the non-existence, a fairy tale for the future generations, dress up for the now, genocide in progress.